Alright guys, what's going on? Jacob here, Miami Dolphins Syndicate. It's been a while, still in the process of moving, is what it is. Cut to the chase. Very difficult subject to deal with here. Talking about Tua, does he deserve the money? Last we heard from the Dolphins, they're not wanting to pay him the top quarterback market money to reach him in that $50 million range. We just saw Goff get extended. Dak's probably going to get extended very soon. And there's a few guys that are making above $50 million a year that Tua wants to be a part of, and the Dolphins don't want to make him a part of. So I want to look at, is it deserved? Does Tua truly deserve to be in that category of 50 plus million guys? And you look at who those guys are that are in the $50 million range, and I think that sets a good benchmark. At the top, just average per season, is Joe Burrow at 55. Alongside him is Trevor Lawrence. They get Jared Goff, who recently signed his deal this year, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, and Jalen Hurts. All of those guys, except for Lawrence and Herbert, have had success, either personal success, playoff success, getting to Super Bowls. Nobody's won a Super Bowl amongst that group. Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts has gotten to Super Bowls. Lamar Jackson got to the AFC Championship game. Jared Goff has been to the Super Bowl again, went to the championship game last year, but no rings amongst those bunch. However, you do see either they've already done something with Burrow, Goff, Jackson, Hurts getting to or getting close to Super Bowls in recent history. Trevor Lawrence, it's a lot of potential with him. I don't think at this exact moment he has played better than Tua, but just ability-wise, he shows the tools to be better. It's just a matter of whether he can put it all together, which as of now he has not shown the ability to do. And then Justin Herbert, dude has so much going against him in Los Angeles. I'm not one of those Dolphins fans that likes to tear down Justin Herbert to try to build up Tua. So that's the group of guys, $50+ million per season, that Tua will be around. And with Lawrence and Goff, as of right now, Tua is probably right at their level in terms of how they've actually played. I'd say he's played better than Lawrence has. Just yardage-wise, he's played better than Goff, but situationally, I think Goff's played a little bit better. But amongst those guys, Tua would arguably be the worst. Going forward, arguably be the worst. It'd be between him and Jared Goff. But at the very least, Jared Goff has gotten himself to the promised land, just hasn't quite finished the deal yet. So the first thing I want to look at is numbers. Pure numbers, raw numbers. What does Tua do? What is on his score chart when he's done with the game? And you look at what he did last year, and I would certainly say it justifies getting that $50 million contract. You're looking at number one in the league in passing yards, 4,600 yards, just over, about 50 yards more than the second closest, and Jared Goff, who again just recently got that contract. You're looking at Dak Prescott, who's right afterwards, who also is probably going to get a contract in that range. And the Cowboys are in a very similar position as the Dolphins, that they do not want to spend the money with Dak Prescott to give him that top dollar, just because there's so many mouths to feed money-wise on the rest of the team, that if you give your quarterback, who there are question marks about their ability, that type of money, you're setting the team back for a long time. However, just pure numbers perspective, Tua Tagovailoa, 46-24, 8.3 yards per attempt, again amongst the top in the league. I think behind Brock Purdy and maybe a handful of other guys. And the completion percentage, again, amongst the top of the league, around 70% at 69.3%. 29 touchdowns, 14 interceptions is good. Could be better, could be a little bit more touchdowns, a little bit less interceptions. However, just from a pure numbers perspective, yes, Tua does deserve to be in the $50 million range. It's then when you get to the other two categories that I'm going to list here that you do bring into question whether it is worth it. And first of which is team winning. Now, Tua has never had a losing record. That is the one thing you cannot take away from him. He has yet to have a losing record as a Miami Dolphin. However, he has yet to take that next step. He's gotten the Dolphins to the playoffs, but we haven't even seen a playoff victory. Now, with Justin Herbert, again, we haven't seen that from him as well, but with Herbert, it applies with what we'll talk about next with Justin Herbert. Tua, we have not seen him win that playoff game. He was injured for the first time that he made the playoffs in his career, when we barely lost to the Bills, and then this most recent season when went to Kansas City, just wasn't there from Tua. Certainly had one of his worst games, if not his actual worst game on the season, against the Kansas City Chiefs. And yeah, there was a lot that went into why he did that and why the team played poorly, most notably the weather, but both teams are playing the same weather. We're yet to see Miami Dolphins, led by Tua, go into a late postseason run. And that is so important when you're giving a guy his next contract. Do you have the ability to make those runs? Do you have the ability to get us to the Super Bowl? Can we envision ourselves winning the Super Bowl because of what you have done? And as of now, that's a no. As of now, that is a no for whether Tua has won enough Winning regular season games is not a benchmark for making $50 million a year. It shouldn't be at the very least. I mean, Daniel Jones' contract is ridiculous, but he's not making $50 million, and he's at the very least won a playoff game. I think he's terrible. However, he does have that one playoff game. I don't think he's going to be winning a Super Bowl anytime soon. I think the New York Giants are smart to move off of him next season when they have an out, but you at the very least saw him get to the next round of the playoffs, which, again, we have yet to see with Tua. So winning, that box is not checked as of now. Always room for change, but as of today, that box is not checked. And then the X Factor ability, which, again, I do not see with Tua. You have the incredible accuracy, which is something of note, which is where one of his best traits as a passer, the ability to pinpoint a pass exactly where he wants it. However, that's not enough. You need to have the ability to take the team, put them on your shoulders, and carry them along when the rest of the team isn't living up. And we've seen with the Miami Dolphins, with Tua, when the rest of the team isn't living up, Tua doesn't bring them back up to win games. Whereas when they're down, when they're out, he usually regresses. He's a player that plays up with his team and plays down with his team, which is not the worst thing in the world, because when the team is playing great like they should, like the Dolphins have the ability to do so, like we've seen so many times this last season, when everything's rolling, Tua is arguably a top 8 quarterback in the league. But when Tyreek has an ankle injury, when Jalen Waddle has an injury, when the offensive line's a little bit banged up, when things are starting to go wrong, there is no lift in his game. He regresses with the team, whereas there's guys like Joe Burrow, who his first couple seasons had a terrible offensive line, and then he ended up got to the Super Bowl. Jared Goff, his defense on the other side in Detroit has been pretty piss poor, and he got them to the NFC Championship game last year. And there's been guys around the league, Patrick Mahomes obviously most notably this most recent season, with having a rookie second round receiver as your best wide receiver and winning the Super Bowl back-to-back years with a pretty bad receiving core for Patrick Mahomes, and still finds a way to win the Super Bowl. Tua doesn't have that. Tua does not have the ability to step up and, in spite of the tools around him, prevail, win, and especially win when it comes to the playoffs. So that's 2 boxes that I'll say no. 1 box that I'll say yes. There is the conversation of just whatever the market is, put him around that. And I understand that argument that that's just the reality of the league. Guys get paid more than they should, especially at the quarterback position, and gotten to the point that there's conversations to be had about whether there should be a cap placed on how much money a quarterback can be given in a particular contract and money per year, because it's getting to a point where even the top tier guys are making money that it might not be worth it for the teams, because when they go down, and we saw last year how many quarterbacks sustained big injuries that affected their team, you then look at the rest of the roster and you're left with a lot to be hoping for. You're left with a lot that isn't good enough to get the job done, especially isn't good enough to get the job done come February or come January, and then potentially even come February. So just on the basis of, technically speaking, on the basis of market, yes, he deserves $50 million. However, beyond stats, the winning, the postseason winning, and the X factor, I can certainly understand why the Miami Dolphins are reluctant to give Tua that big money. I mean, you look what Brock Purdy is doing with the Niners, and yes, that is just such a niche and on the outskirts, an outlier example of what can be done. However, Brock Purdy making less than $1 million, and obviously that's going to go up here after this next season, him making less than $1 million gives the 49ers the ability to keep as much talent around him as possible. And then the second he gets paid, where's Ayuk going to end up? Or maybe it's a Debo, maybe it's a CMC, maybe it's a Kittle. One of those guys are not going to be there once he gets that money, and you're going to see the ability from Brock Purdy look not as good. And it's a conversation whether Brock Purdy and Tua, who's better between the two of them. I'm not sure, but we did see Brock Purdy get to the Super Bowl. We've yet to see Tua win a playoff game. That's a conversation for another day. Just outright, does Tua deserve $50 million? No. And that sucks for Tua fans. I stand by that. I like to be realistic and in the middle when it comes to Tua, but call a spade a spade. He does not deserve $50 million. I've said multiple times last offseason that if it came down to paying him $50 million or letting him walk, I would let him walk. And I'm not quite as on that pedestal as I was last year, but the results aren't there. The eye test isn't there with Tua. Still short, still not the most athletic, still not the biggest arm in the world. Doesn't have that ability to step up when everybody else is not. I want him to succeed. As long as he's a Dolphin player, I will succeed, but the success of the Dolphins is more important to me than getting Tua his money. And if he does get that money, it's going to set the Dolphins back. We're going to end up losing more guys than we already saw have to walk away from the team this year. That's going to continue. You're going to see more of an exodus as the seasons come along, and I don't know if Tua has the ability to take that next step, take that next year. I think he can win the Super Bowl, but I think he has to win the Super Bowl this year. Otherwise, it's going to have to be just season by season finesse by Greer and McDaniel to find guys on cheap deals to get them around to it, because you're not going to be able to afford to keep Tyreek Hill, to keep Jalen Waddle. You already saw Christian Wilkins exit the door. So that's my 2 cents. I know a lot of you are going to disagree. I can already hear the keyboard clicking in the comments. However, just on a basis of does he deserve it, I think the answer has to be no. But obviously, I know a lot of you are going to have a different opinion. So let me know down below in the comments, should Tua get that extension? What should his amount be? If it's around $45 million, which it's probably not going to be, I can accept that. Yes, that $5 million matters. That is the difference of bringing in another receiver. That's the difference of bringing in an Odell as your third option and not having to rely on Braxton Berrios or Cedric Wilson as your 3. That is the difference. So 45, I can swallow it, but 50 and above, it's probably going to happen, and you're probably going to have to deal with it, but I would not give Tua that money. So let me know down below in the comments, what do you think? What do you think of the money that he could get while down there? Let us know some video ideas. We're in the middle of the summer, and both Donovan and I have been very busy. As you see, the videos have dried up a little bit. So let us know your thoughts and what you're thinking about this point in the summer. We're going to be trying to put out some more content for y'all guys. So let us know down below in the comments. Appreciate y'all very much for watching. Make sure to hit that like button, hit that sub button. Have a great rest of your day. Go Dolphins.